Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, November 17th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Chiefs-Raiders week has arrived, and it comes with a little more spice than usual. The Raiders upset the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium in Week 5. Las Vegas played great. The Raiders caught the Chiefs' defense flat-footed, and Patrick Mahomes and the offense went through a third-quarter drought and could not recover. The Chiefs had won 12 of the previous 14 games against the Raiders, and this one felt so good to Jon Gruden that the Raiders coach had the bus driver take his team on a victory lap around Arrowhead Stadium after the game. Both coaches were asked about that moment on Monday, and we'll start today's podcast by playing Gruden's response to the answer. He wasn't happy to be asked that question. But after that, you'll hear from star columnists Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian on that slice of showmanship, but more importantly, the contract extensions for Andy Reid and Brett Veach that were announced on Monday. After a break, you'll hear from Chiefs CEO and Chairman Clark Hunt, who spoke to the contract. So let's get going.
Hey, John. Today, Andy Reid mentioned a couple times the victory lap you guys took in KC for the first game. What exactly was the victory lap, and is that something that you think about this week as far as bulletin board material or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, you can find a smart aleck bus driver in Kansas City who made some snide comments when we got on the bus. Maybe that's why we drove around the stadiums to tick him off. You know, this is ridiculous. Next question.
I have never driven a bus. But I think if I were a bus driver and I was carrying an NFL team away from a stadium, I'd try to have some fun with it, or maybe engage in a little conversation, especially if the team that I'm driving to the airport had won the game. And but Jon Gruden didn't seem to be in a good mood about this topic on Monday, and called the bus driver that took him from Arrowhead to the airport a smart aleck. I think he used those words, smart aleck bus driver or smart ass. I don't know, one of those.
Smart aleck.
And I just thought Gruden should have had more fun with the topic than he did yesterday. What could the bus driver have said that prompted Gruden to say what he did yesterday?
Snide comments.
Snide comments, right.
I don't know for sure, but I do believe our own Sam Mellinger is going to find a way to get to the bottom of it with that distress flare he sent out on Twitter yesterday, trying to get the bus driver or somebody who knows the bus driver to give him a call. And has this already happened? Have you broken through?
No, I would love to do that. And if the bus driver is listening to this, please call me 816-234-4365. But here's a pro tip for young journalists out there. If you send a distress flare for something as ridiculous as this, you may get 3 people who call in claiming to be the bus driver. So I probably need to be more surgical than I'm.
It's funny you say that because, Sam, you're too young for this movie, but I'm sure Blair saw Spartacus back in the day, and there's a scene where they're coming to see Spartacus, and they want to know. They don't know what he looks like, and so everybody in the group, when they say, "Where is Spartacus?" they all say, "I'm Spartacus."
Yeah, there's some of that.
Made me think of that for some reason. That you may have some traffic to negotiate here.
Yeah. One of the things, though, I feel like this is getting overlooked in this story is, first of all, that video clip of Gruden talking about it when he says smart aleck and snide comments. As soon as whoever's asking the question, as soon as he mentioned bus or lap around or whatever, Gruden immediately looks away and wipes his forehead. It appears he's wiping sweat from his forehead, which I thought was funny. And his story makes no sense. So, first of all, a bus driver is able to get into his head so much that he's thinking about it like that. But also, if the bus driver just said, I don't know what he would have said, congratulations, the first time you've beaten them and however many, whatever the bus driver said. But then the way to get back at the bus driver is to make him do a lap around the stadium. Now I'll show you.
Yeah. Who is that punishing? You're going to tell the bus driver, we're going to put 10 more minutes on your time. You're going to bus around the sports complex here. It doesn't seem to make sense. Listen, we know what happened. The Raiders won. It was a terrific victory. They played great, and Gruden was happy, right? So he said, "Bus driver, let's do a lap around here," and that's exactly what happened. So. And Vahe, I like the Spartacus. I do remember that scene in Spartacus. I'll go one more recent though, and I know you will remember this. That in 2000, I'm pretty sure the year was 2001. The Big 12 football media days was at Cowboy Stadium, and Colorado came down there with a good team. Gary Barnett was the coach, and they brought their couple players. And Gary Barnett when the team got to the stadium, and they did their media day obligations before they left. Gary Barnett made whoever was driving the van or whatever take a lap around Cowboy Stadium because he wanted his players to see this is where you're going to be in December for the Big 12 championship game. And of course, that didn't come out until Colorado was at the Big 12 championship game that year, and they beat Texas in something of an upset. So. Listen, stuff like that can absolutely have a motivating, could be a motivating factor or kind of a celebration. I don't know why Gruden doesn't just own it and say, yeah, that's what we did. We had a great victory and we did a victory lap. So what? I mean, it's a great team, great coach, all that stuff. And just own it and roll with it and have fun with it. But he didn't seem to go that direction on Monday.
Yeah.
Totally. It's a funny idea, too. I love it. Like a literal victory. Yeah. Good for you.
Somehow I think if the Chiefs win on Sunday night, they'll have their own statement to make. This is a team that does not shy away from their feelings after they think they've been disrespected.
I saw it.
What's the over-under on the number of bus emojis from Frank?
Aren't you guys figuring there's some kind of bus celebration they can do after a touchdown? Something with somebody pretended to drive the bus and
there's no question.
Walking around them. They'll have that in there.
Not just that, but then when Mahomes gets on the Zoom afterward and you ask him about it, he'll say that was a tribute to Gus, who drove us around White House High School back in the day. He'll have some nonsense story.
Might even have a Ralph Cramden hat in his bag this week, so we could put it on for the Zoom post-game Zoom. So, okay, so I've spent too much time on this frivolity. There was some real news out at Arrowhead yesterday. Actually, the news came back in, was it August, when word got out that Andy Reid and Brett Veach were in line for contract extensions, and Clark Hunt just made it official on Monday with his Zoom press conference. So we weren't surprised by this, but it's still a comment on the Chiefs and the stability and where this organization is right now. And I know we talked about this a few months ago, that the last time that Andy Reid was given an extension, the general manager was fired about an hour later. At least the news release came out with John Dorsey being fired. This time, the Reid and Veach extensions were announced almost simultaneously, and there just seems to be a lot of harmony, a lot of peace in the valley with the Chiefs right now. Do you guys get that sense? A lot of stability here.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I mean 100%, and it's still, I know I need to get over this, but it is just remarkable to think about how far they've come in that way, in that specific way, stability. And, when Clark took over and repeatedly throughout the first 5-8 years, however long it was of him running the team, that's what he always talked about, is stability. He used that word over and over. He talked about the Steelers. Like that's who we want to be. And, he took over, I think, officially in 2006. I think I have that right. And the first, what would that be, 6 years of his ownership, they were the least stable team, or at least among them in the NFL. And that pendulum swung fast and hard, and it's pretty remarkable. And I do think that Andy Reid deserves most of the credit for it. He is the stabilizing force, and that's just kind of his personality. But my gosh, if you're Brett Veach, why wouldn't you want that extension? If you're Patrick Mahomes, why wouldn't you want to sign for as long as you can? They've created an atmosphere that everybody wants to be a part of, and it kind of feeds on itself. It used to feed on itself in the wrong way. Now it's feeding on itself in the right way.
Blair, when during the teleconference yesterday, Clark used a term I'd never heard before. Maybe you guys have heard it. He referred to a virtuous circle around Andy Reid, basically. And so I decided to look up virtuous circle, and the first thing you see is the contrast of vicious cycle. and that's sort of a nutshell of what Sam just said. I think they pulled out of that, and a lot of different people deserve credit, but it all sort of rotates around Andy Reid and what he brings out of people. Sam, I was just rereading your column from 2019 that really delved into the first meeting between Clark and Andy Reid and the chemistry between them right away, and how other interviews that were supposed to be happening came and went while they kept talking at the Philadelphia airport. And, we think that there was a certain, way they clicked. But I guess in my mind, and you've written about this before too, it is worth noting that there was something about Clark that obviously intrigued Andy too, and that was not just the choice of the Chiefs to go after Andy. It was that Andy thought this was the right place when he had plenty of options, including some that were perhaps geographically preferable for a guy who grew up in Los Angeles and went to college in Utah. So it really is testimony to the harmony in multiple ways in the organization, all at the top.
Yeah, I've had the sense that Andy went into that like wanting to like Clark and wanting to like the Chiefs. I think that sort of the history of the organization, he's a football geek,
Yeah.
And I think that appealed to him. I think that in some ways, being in a place like Kansas City might even be preferable to, closer to his beach house in California. Just, when I'm away, that's football and I'm working. And then when I'm home, it's something different. But he still had to, I would love to just listen to that meeting, because he had to have had some pointed questions about where the Chiefs were at that moment. Mm-hmm. And Clark had to have had some pointed questions about where Andy was, mentally, emotionally, after everything that he had been through in that last year or so. And I think both parties wanted to make it work, but that's a different thing than having it actually work.
Yeah.
They were both coming off awful years, right? Yep. I think Andy was he 4-12 in his last year in Philly?
I think that's right.
And also after his son had died.
His son.
Yep. Yeah, and we know about the Chiefs. They were 2-14, and that was the least of their problems that year. Being an awful team. So I also liked how, I forgot who asked the question, but Clark quickly recalled the 2013 team, Andy Reid's first team getting out of the gates at 9-0. He remembered that it was almost like that was confirmation for Clark that this was the right hire, and it didn't matter what happened after that. For the rest of that season, they 9-0 start after the seasons both of the parties had the previous year, and that apparently has stuck with Clark in a big way over the years. That there was confirmation of making the right choice.
Yeah.
The other thing, and Sam, I loved your points about the history, and and I think that's right. I think Andy is such a student of the game, and it meant something to be part of this franchise that is historically significant. And I know that Clark does and has in his life referred to the Steelers as the model of consistency. I kind of compare what the Chiefs may have done or may be doing right now to what the Cowboys did when, in the late 80s, they were just horrible, right? Proud franchise, and they had the 1-15 season, Troy Aikman's first year. And in a matter of a couple of years, right, with Jimmy Johnson and then, Aikman and Irvin and Emmitt Smith, they were, winning 3 out of 4 Super Bowls. So when I think about that team, I think about are the Chiefs on the doorstep of something like that with their personnel right now, and would anything less than multiple Super Bowl appearances / championships be a little bit of a disappointment if where the Chiefs are age-wise and, players in important positions and Andy Reid is the coach and everything that they seem to have going for them right now, if they don't capitalize on this opportunity in a way that, other organizations have in NFL history, might we look back at this time with a little bit of disappointment?
Gosh, yeah. I think so. It just seems like at this point, it's no longer about the first Super Bowl in 50 years. It's about what have you done for us lately, because of the framework they have and all the things that seem built in, the age, the dynamic relationship between the quarterback and coach and the general manager, all those things. I don't know. I mean, Sam, you grew up here. Blair, you've been here a lot longer than I have, but I think that Super Bowl win is fantastic, but I think it will feel a little hollow if it's not built on in the next, 3, 5, 7 seasons.
Yeah, it's a kind of a needle to thread here, because taking Super Bowls for granted is a ridiculous thing to do, right? Like anybody that's followed this team for longer than 18 months knows that. But I don't know how anyone who's involved in this core group right now would be able to look back on this with anything other than regret if they don't win at least another Super Bowl or two. And again, I mean, it's dynasty or bust. Sometimes it's championship or bust, and now we're saying kind of dynasty or bust. But I think that's real. Do you think the Packers are happy that are they satisfied that they only had one Super Bowl? And they were actually in a similar situation to the Chiefs back in, was it 2010? I think when they won their Super Bowl.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that roster was really young. I think Aaron Rodgers was 27, 25, something like that. And really young roster. A lot of draft picks had worked out. Cap space was right. They had it all set up to be a dynasty, and that obviously didn't happen. They've had success, but no more Super Bowls. And I think that this group, the Chiefs, I think they understand that. I think they believe it. And I think that they're working. I mean, geez, we talk a lot about complacency, Super Bowl hangover, all those things. They're 8-1, and they've been blowing some folks out. So it appears as if they are operating with that same understanding that one's not enough.
Yeah, and look, the Packers have been back to the NFC title game a couple of times since then, I think, right, including last year. But I think the Falcons beat them in the NFC title game a few years ago, and 49ers last year. But they're always in the playoffs. They just don't have the complete enough team to get over the hump and get back into a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I listen. I think it's fair for a Chiefs fan to be greedy right now, because you've never had this collection of talent at the quarterback and at certain key positions, and it's so good that teams in your division are trying to mimic it with the speedy wide receivers that the Raiders and the Broncos drafted, and look at the group of apparently great young quarterbacks in the league now that I think Mahomes is the standard for that, and teams are looking for their Patrick Mahomes, and who knows, maybe the Dolphins have one in Tua, maybe the Chargers have one in Herbert. So I think people are out to catch what at least emulate what the Chiefs have done. So I don't know. I just think there is opportunity to take advantage of this right now. Players in their prime, not Mahomes. I think his prime is we'll see that for a while. But Kelsey, Hill, just other players in their prime, Tyrann Mathieu, others that you do need to strike now while you can. And listen, it won't change the fact that Mahomes will be a Hall of Famer, and Andy Reid will be a Hall of Famer, and Travis Kelsey and and Tyreek Hill and maybe Tyrann Mathieu. I don't know. All these guys could be Hall of Famers, but I got to think that there's got to be one or two more of these Super Bowls in their future.
Blair, one thing you said, and Sam spoke to it too, but I haven't really thought of it this way before. But when you think there's certain teams that are either, I don't know if dynasty and mystique are interchangeable terms, but you would say there was a Patriots mystique for a long time, and you wouldn't say there was really a Packers mystique. And the difference is those times being on the cusp and not getting there. And I guess that's the question about the Chiefs, right? They have everything in place. How many times might they lose in an AFC Championship game instead of winning? And how thin is that margin? And that's going to be all the difference in how this regime is ultimately perceived. It could be a perennial contender with a lot of talent, or it could be, on the cusp of a dynasty, and that obviously remains to be played out.
Yeah, I mean, even they're absolutely set up to be in that mix, in that small handful of teams that have a chance to win a championship. But I guess this is maybe what you're speaking to, Vahe, about once you're in there, nothing's guaranteed. I always think about what if Jimmy Garoppolo hit Emmanuel Sanders on that deep ball. I think Patrick Mahomes, I think they still would have gone down and won the game at the end, but we don't know that. And there's a lot of little things like that. What if Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't win in Foxborough on the last day of the season, and the Chiefs have to play in the wild card round? There's just a lot of breaks that you have to get. You have to be lucky and good. And the Chiefs were both last year. They're certainly good this year. They haven't needed the luck yet, but I think we know that that'll come.
Yeah.
I would add, what if Dee Ford hadn't lined up offsides the year before?
Or they win the coin flip.
Yep, that's right. Or they win the coin flip. I think the Chiefs, arguably were was at least, if the Patriots were the best team in the NFL that year, I think the Chiefs were 1A or 1B, and would have beaten the Rams in the Super Bowl, and maybe had maybe we'd be talking about their back-to-back Super Bowl triumphs. Who knows? Yeah. Who knows? But anyway, okay, guys, listen, great conversation. Really enjoyed it. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll hear from Clark Hunt, who met with the media on Monday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Blair.
All right, Blair.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody, for joining this afternoon. I hope everyone is staying well and healthy during these challenging times. As we gear up to head into the second half of the season, there's obviously a lot of positives that we can take away from our first 9 games. However, at this point, our focus is on a very important divisional game we have coming up this week against the Las Vegas Raiders, and I know that's where the coaches and the players' mindset is at this point. In addition to doing a nice job on the field, I want to compliment the players, the coaches, and our entire staff on the job that they've done managing through the pandemic. However, like our on-field performance, we're going to have to remain vigilant and humble if we want to stay healthy and achieve our goal of completing our season in Tampa for Super Bowl 55. I also want to acknowledge our great fans. Even though we've had only limited attendance at Arrowhead, our fans have done a great job of being loud and showing their support for the team. Finally, I think most of you at this point have seen the releases we issued a little bit ago confirming that we have extended Andy Reid's and Brett Veach's contracts. I can't speak highly enough about the job the two of them have done in leading our football team. And I'm personally thrilled that both of them want to continue their time with the Chiefs and our collective pursuit of more world championships. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Let's go first to Bob Fesco. Go ahead, Bob.
Clark, obviously Andy's been with you for a while now, but how have you changed as an owner since the day you hired Andy Reid to where you guys are right now?
Well, the short answer is I smile a whole lot more. If you just think about the journey that we've been on over the last 8 years, when we hired Andy, we were obviously coming off of several very difficult seasons. The turnaround with Andy was almost immediate, going 9-0 his first season in Kansas City. And, to his credit, he's done nothing but get better. And that's helped our football team get better. Obviously, that crescendoed with the Super Bowl victory this past February. And I'm excited to look to the future because I don't think there's been any change in his energy level and just the way the players respond to him. They're excited to come to practice every day, excited to play for him, and fully on board with our goals to win world championships.
Let's go next to Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Clark. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks, Adam.
Good. Hey, I just wanted to say quickly, I really appreciate the note you sent. I hope Ted or Ryan said something to you about that, but I just appreciate that. And I wanted to congratulate you on today's news also. So what's your job on the football side of things now, just to get out of the way? But really, in all seriousness, can you share with us what your role is on the football side of things, how often you talk to Andy and talk to Brad, at least during the season? And Brad, I'll have one quick follow-up.
Yeah. So I talk to both of them every week. In a normal year, those might be in-person meetings, but this year there's been a lot of phone calls and Zoom calls. During the season, Andy's obviously very focused on each game coming up, and so our conversations tend to revolve around that. During the off season, it covers a whole lot more subjects. As you can imagine, this summer, Brett and I had many conversations about the contracts that we were working on, starting with our QB. And, that's really where I'll get involved with Brett and Andy is on the composition of the football team, on trades that they're interested in making, which players to sign and, how that fits into the salary cap.
Okay. And also, I was able to ask Mark Donovan a ticket question or two, but I wanted to ask you this. How much value is there for the Chiefs in selling tickets in the amount that you are this season? What's the value in that as opposed to no tickets at all? Yeah.
Well, financially, it's obviously better than having an empty stadium. But at the end of the day, it's not a huge amount of money. I think really the bigger value is for the organization, for the team and the players. I think having some fans in the stadium, and our fans, as I mentioned, have done a great job of being as loud as they possibly can, makes it feel as normal as possible, makes the players feel like, hey, we still have a home field advantage. I also think there's some value in having fans this year as we look to next year. Because unfortunately, I think COVID's going to be with us for a while. But the fact that we were able to have some fans this year, maybe we can build on that next year once we get to the season.
Let's go next to Pete Sweeney. Go ahead, Pete.
Hi, Clark. Thank you for taking some time with us today. As you think back to your dad moving the team to Kansas City and really the whole history of the franchise, just how critical was that decision to bring Andy Reid and by proxy Brett Veach on board in 2013 now that you can reflect back?
Well, when the Chiefs came to Kansas City back in 1963, they were fortunate to have what would be a Hall of Fame coach and also what would be a Hall of Fame quarterback. And I think we're in a similar position today. The value of a great head coach in the NFL cannot be overstated. I think in a lot of ways it's similar to the value of a great quarterback. It's really on the field. It's a quarterback league. And when you have the two of them together, you can have a lot of success. Just like Hank and Lynn did back then, now we've got Andy and Patrick, working their magic almost on a weekly basis.
Let's go next to Sam McDowell. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Clark. You mentioned attendance. We saw it today with Philadelphia. They announced they're not going to be having fans anymore. Have there been any discussions with the way the pandemic is going right now about changing what you guys are doing for the last 3 home games, about no longer having fans?
Yeah, the short answer is there's been no discussion about changing the plans for the last 3 games of the season. Obviously, everybody in Kansas City is concerned with the spike in cases. We have a conversation with the health director, Dr. Archer, on a weekly basis, just to review, what's happened at our most recent games and, what we can do to maybe improve the protocols on a go-forward basis. Right now, our expectation is that we'll have the same level of fans at those 3 games. But obviously, with COVID, things are very dynamic.
Let's go next to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, Clark. This question is more about Brett. I think you probably had a pretty good idea with, 14 years of experience in Philadelphia, what you were going to get from Andy. But obviously seeing, Brett through the ranks, just what have you learned about him since you gave him the position to be the general manager and how he sort of led the team in that role?
Yeah. Clearly Brett's done an outstanding job. One of the things I think that's most important to the success that we've had is how he and Andy work together. And of course, they came with the pre-existing relationships from Philadelphia. So, that was something that I knew we were getting. But it's probably been better than I thought. That dynamic's really great. A lot of times you can have tension between your GM and head coach, but the two of them really work together hand in hand. When Brett became the GM 3.5 years ago, he had some areas that he had to grow into. He had to learn the cap management side of the business, and he's done a fantastic job on that. I think we can all say, we're surprised that he was able to accomplish everything that he was able to accomplish, this past summer in terms of re-signing our veteran players. I also knew that he was a really good evaluator, but it's one thing to be a good evaluator and another thing to be the guy sitting in the chair having to make the decisions, both on draft choices and free agents. And I think you can just look at the last couple of years at some of the marquee free agents that we've signed, how well they fit into the team, fit into the scheme, really helped us be better, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And then we're starting to see a lot of production from his draft choices. I always say that it takes you 3 or 4 years to really know what you have from a draft class. But the last 2 draft classes, those guys they're on the field and they're making a difference. So he's doing an outstanding job there. He's also done a great job managing his staff. I mean, there's a reason they call that position general manager. There's a lot of things to manage this year, more so than ever because of the complications from COVID. And Brett's always thinking ahead. He's proactive, finding solutions before the problems emerge. And just really has done an outstanding job all the way around and exceeded my expectations.
Let's go next to Matt Derrick. Go ahead, Matt.
Thanks for the time, Clark. And you mentioned a little bit about, Brett right there. And I know when you hired him, you mentioned that he was a people person, and that was a big part of the hiring him and what you liked about him. I'm curious, one, what were kind of your first impressions of Brett before that, even going back to when you first heard about him and first met him? And what's the one thing, I know you listed some things off there, what's the one thing you've learned about Brett the last 3.5 years that surprised you?
Well, I'm not sure that there's any one thing that's surprised me. I think one thing that's been a revelation maybe for all of us is how aggressive Brett is. And he's aggressive in what I'll say a conservative way. His decision making when he's being aggressive is very well thought out. And I think that's really paid dividends for us. Whether it was making trades for key players or signing free agents or figuring out how to get Patrick and Chris done this summer. I think that really it serves him well, and it serves us well also.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derrick Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam Mellinger for stopping by and talking Chiefs. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you, especially for those who want a deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. You want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of the offers, send me an email at bkerkhoff@kcstar.com and I'll get you to the right place. Hey, whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting in supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another episode.